I'm not going to debate about whether it's right or it's wrong that they lose it. Same with ESA. What matters is the fact is they will. So if they're going to lose their income, what will be done at local level to help them cope with that loss of income? And bear in mind as well, many of these will be the same people who are also being affected by the changes to employment and support allowance. So for some people, it will be a double whammy, particularly for those on the borderline, maybe with a borderline mental health problem, a borderline learning disability, or a physical health problem, who are in that grey area of maybe not being quite good enough to satisfy the benefit rules, but not quite well enough to move into employment. I'm not going to take too much about housing benefit because presumably I'm conscious that most of you will have that until it's coming out of your ears. But there's a list there. And last year, Helen mentioned discretionary housing payment. There was a Freedom of Information request this week, which established that local authorities this year have £20 million to spend on discretionary housing payments nationally, and they only managed to spend £19 million out of it, despite the hardship that already exists in the housing sector. Local authorities actually didn't spend the full DHP allocation. This is a comment regarding the pilots that are going to take place regarding direct payments, or the absence of direct payments, from David Ashford, Chief Executive of Green Square, which is in Oxford, one of the pilot areas. I don't want to read that out, but you can see it on the slides if you download them. Tax credits, reduced help with childcare costs, reduction in the income cut-off point. It used to be you get child tax credit with an income of £58,000 a year. You may feel that's too generous. That's dropped this year to £44,000. From April, it's down to about £27,000. A halving of the upper income limit for people to receive child tax credit in some cases. And then we have universal credit coming in. So on top of all the other changes that we talked about, we have a new benefit coming in 2013, October 2013, for new claims, 2013 to 2017, for a gradual migration of all people in receiving all those benefits there. Everybody on income-related JSA, ESA, income support, child tax credit, working tax credit, housing benefit will be moved over to universal credit. So it's a massive, massive change involving 7 million claimants. Now, personally, I have no argument with the idea that universal credit should be introduced, and it's a simplification. It means a person will be making one claim for one benefit instead of going here, there, and everywhere to claim child tax credit, housing benefit, income support to different organisations. So in principle, I have no problems with universal credit. As ever, the devil is in the detail. And some of that detail, no losers at the point of change. So nobody will have a drop in their income as a result of moving on to universal credit. But there will be people who, under the current system, would get more than they will receive in universal credit. The parents of disabled children, in particular, could be losing about £50 a week as a result of that change. Pension credit for pensioners will include both the housing credit and the child credit when universal credit is introduced. So it's not just working age claims that will be affected, it will also affect all lower income pensioners. But pension credit also has to cope with the fact that housing benefit will no longer exist. Child tax credit will no longer exist. Universal credit is going to be heavily reliant on the real-time sharing of information between the Department for Work and Pensions and Revenue and Customs. And of course, I think we all have total faith in the government's ability to deliver on time, within budget, a working IT system. Yeah, okay. But universal credit is totally dependent on the IT working, absolutely dependent. It undermines the whole principle if that real-time exchange of information doesn't occur. One change that's had very little attention is the abolition of community care grants and crisis loans. People moving into accommodation for the first time who need a community care grant in order to furnish their accommodation. People who are less than out income at the end of the week for whatever reason who need to apply for a crisis loan. Those payments will disappear from April 2013, just over a year away, and instead the money will be passed over to local authorities, top-tier local authorities. I'm doing some work with the Local Government Association on this. There are 150 local authorities involved in the top-tier local authorities, and from what I can see, there are about 150 local authorities at the moment scratching their heads wondering what the hell to do with this money. How to operate it, what to do, whether to work with other local authorities, whether to work with housing departments, whether it should be handed over to the social work department, the housing department, housing benefit team, handed to the DHB pot. Local authorities at the moment have no idea what to do with their new responsibility to take over community care grants and crisis loans. And those local authorities who say they've got an idea are probably lying. This is a slide actually I borrowed from the Department for Work and Pensions about the payment method of universal credit. And of course, obviously, the big issue for the housing sector is this issue of direct payments. But there are also other issues, monthly payments of universal credit. People who are, at the moment, used to budgeting fortnightly will in future be budgeting monthly. And remember, that monthly figure will include their rent. So people at the moment are maybe handling £200 a fortnight, may soon be handling £1,000, £1,200 a month in one go paid into their bank account. For whatever reason, I think that will cause immense problems on the budgeting side for many, many individuals and families. That large sum of money going into their bank account in one go, I think will be a major, major problem. And then finally, the benefit cap. This is the one that's had all the publicity. This is the one that probably, if you stopped 1,000 people in the street, 995 of them would shake their heads and go, yeah, definitely, I agree with this. Why should they? Why should people? The message regarding the benefit income cap simply has not got across. The large percentage of the income that has been referred to merely passes through the claimant's hand on its way to a landlord. Most of the people affected are paying large sums of rent to private landlords. Larger families will be affected also, but the biggest group of losers are people paying high sums of rent to private landlords. So they don't see the money. So a cap that includes money that effectively is paid to a third party, I think is an unjust and unfair process.
Excuse me, on this slide, it's £250 there, seems a bit strange.
£250 a week?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yeah. Why is there a discrepancy between £500 a week for families and £350 for single adults? We're very puzzled with £250 for single adults, frankly, because leaving aside the fact that people in receipt of DLA will be excluded, there will be very few people on benefits, even with high rents, anywhere near that £350 a week. Some on job seekers classes, someone else seeks job for a week. So unless they're paying £300 a week, which is unlikely for their rent because of the cap that already exists, we think that £350 a week for single adults is a slightly strange figure. But £500 a week for families, and one of the things in the DWP's own impact assessment was 30% of the families affected are from black and minority ethnic communities. I'll just put a few examples. Again, to illustrate, most of these relate to people with high rents. But somebody there, the second example there, couple of job seekers man with 3 children. At the moment, and I've used current benefit rates, benefit income of £292 a week, they would have to find somewhere to live at £208 a week, inclusive of their council tax, to remain within the cap. £800 a month rent. Now, the social housing sector, probably okay. Well, at least until affordable rent. But in the private rented sector, £800 a month for a 2 or 3 bedroom property, very difficult to achieve. And that's just a family with 3 children. And then finally, I started with talking about people falling into debt, and I'm finishing with people falling into debt. Because one of the solutions that people have is to use commercial lending. Short-term loans, doorstep lenders, internet-based companies. And I picked 5. One of them's fictional. Which one? Sorry? Provident is correct. Provident checks do charge 272.2% APR. Provident has been going years. Years and years. No, crazy loans. That's Ronald and Reginald's company. That's a fake one. The rest are real. Wonga. You've seen Wonga advertising? They're on the front of Blackpool FC shirts, sponsoring a football team. Payday UK, My Payday, all of those are the annual percentage rate that those companies charge. Wonga dispute the 4,214. It's correct, but they say it's unfair because they don't loan over an annual period. They only loan for a month at a time. So they say that their real interest rate is only 360%, which of course is much more reasonable. But if you work it on an annual basis, you'll be talking about 4,214% APR, and that is the APR that is listed on their website and in very, 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 very small print on their TV adverts. If people are being forced into that form of lender, it really is a question of what can we all do? Advice sector, social services departments, and the housing sector to rescue people, and I don't use that word lightly, to rescue people from this kind of situation. The benefit system is going to make life difficult. Whether you believe that's right or wrong, it's a fact. It will become difficult. And if people have those difficulties, this is where they're going to end up, unless we can come up with better solutions, which Dave is now going to tell you about.